My name is Joe Curtis. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I went to Sacred Heart School, primary school. I went to John Adams High School. And at 17, I come out of the high school. I joined the Navy at 17. I lived in Coney Island. Coney Island was not a Jewish. All my friends were Jewish, about 90% of them. So we're living there, and my friends would say, come on in. I go into the shul, and they put a yarmulke around me. I used to go to the shul all the time. I was part of their gang. So my mother would say to my brother, see where Joseph is. Check the shul first, we gotta eat. Oh, well, another thing I'll never forget. I was walking along Myrtle Avenue. I was about 10 years old. My father had given me a ring, nice ring. I had it on my hand, and all of a sudden, my friend and I are walking along, and this guy stops me. He says, hey, listen, do you know where Charlie is in the bakery shop? Bakery shop? Well, that's about 2 blocks away. Oh, it's too far for me to walk. I got to leave a message for him. Could you give him a message? Yeah, well, I'll be here. Here's a quarter for going. Wait a minute, how do I know you're going to come back? You got the quarter. I said, well, I'll be back. Maybe you could leave something. You got a piece of clothing. Oh, how about your ring? Oh, my ring, yeah. I'll just hold it for you till you come back. So as a 10-year-old, I gave him the ring. So I'm going 2 blocks along, and I go into a bakery that he's supposed to go. I says, is Charlie here? There's no Charlie here. No Charlie works here? No. That's funny. So I go back to where he's supposed to be. He was gone. He took my ring. And from that day on, I never trusted very few people from that moment on. And my father was when I told him the story, he wanted to kill the guy. My father was a boss in the Brooklyn Eagle, and he ran for president of the union. He became president of the union. He's one of the toughest guys I ever knew in my whole life. Nobody ever fought my father because he would win. I mean, they had fist fight. And one time we were at a Dodger game, and a guy behind us must have been drunk, and he started cursing. My father says, hey, what's that? You got women and children around here using that language? And he starts saying, who the hell do you think you are? All of a sudden, my father threw a punch. He hit this guy. The guy went ass over head. The ushers come down and pull him out. But that's the kind of a guy he was. And the Navy, I was right near where I lived, about 5 blocks. One of the reasons I loved the Navy, every Navy day, when I was in grammar school, I used to play hooky. Because that day you could see go onto the ships, and I used to visit the ships, and I used to love those ships. And that, in the back of my mind, that always stood, I wanted to be on a ship, so I wanted to join the Navy. The thing is, Pearl Harbor was the reason when we were attacked. I wanted to go in right away, but I was just 17. My mother says, please, wait till you're 18, wait till you're 18. So about November 1st, I was still 17, I joined the Navy. So then I wound up going on a heavy cruiser, the USS Minneapolis. And I was on there for 2.5 years. The Minneapolis had been torpedoed. Their bow had been blown off, and they had come to Bremerton to get repaired. And after a couple of months, they put a new bow on, and that's when I got on. But I'll never forget Hawaii. It was so beautiful. And I looked at it, and I saw Diamond Head. I couldn't believe how beautiful that island was. And then we got into Pearl Harbor, into the port itself, and it was ships all over sunk. They were still trying to raise them and get rid of some of them. And we had pulled in where the cruiser division pulls in, and it was amazing to see these ships, such phenomenal big ships, laying dead in the water, underneath the water. Yeah, I was on the ship as an electrician. We had 50 electricians on the ship, and we had 1,200 men on that ship. And we took care of the motors and the generators. I was in the generator gang. I was down in the engine room. If the ship ever got hit in my engine room, they would never open it because they didn't want the flood water to come up and damage the rest of the ship. So every time I hear a guy talking about, I had the earphones, they're shooting at planes, and when you hear, I think it was a Betty. A Betty was a torpedo plane. They said, the torpedo plane is coming in aft, it's coming in, and I'm looking, I'm saying, don't let that torpedo come in. But they knock it down. Oh, Jesus. We were at a place we were supposed to be relaxed, no problem. I'm standing there talking to a couple of guys on the deck, and all of a sudden we're looking over in the New Orleans, it's another cruiser, we saw a plane go, and he dropped a bomb. And we could see it, and it just missed a fantail, and the thing exploded, but it didn't hit the ship. But when that thing I looked up this way, and sure enough, a Japanese plane was coming at us. They dropped a bomb, and I see two lights. I really realized that was machine guns. And he drops the bomb, but the bomb missed. We dove into like a big area, and it was bullet holes in the deck where we had been standing. So that was close. On the way to the Philippines, and the whole fleet, Halsey was in charge of the fleet. We had carriers, we had cruisers, battle wagons, destroyers, and all of a sudden, we hit a storm. And this storm started, the rain started, the sea started to come up into big waves. I mean, really big waves. And the ship, we had a big ship, but it was rocking like mad. And we said, what is this? And the next thing you know, the destroyers, it was so bad, the waves are coming up into the stacks of the destroyers. Now, the destroyers' stacks are maybe 50 feet off the water. And they put the fire out in their engine rooms. So they're dead in the water. They could have no pumps. They couldn't pump out the water. The waves kept coming in, hitting them. Next thing you know, they started to tip over, and they went all the way over, and they sunk. 3 of them. And it was 1,000 men. And we couldn't pick them up because the sea was like crazy. They couldn't exist on the sea. Even if they had a life preserver, they couldn't stand. And as the storm kept going along, all of a sudden it subsided, the sea calmed down, and all of a sudden we looked up and we saw a big circle. And in that circle was blue sky. We realized that later on, that was the eye of the storm. It went right over the fleet. And then it started in again, but it wasn't as bad as the initial group. When we first got on board ship, the guys from the west, the south, the east, the west, and I start talking Brooklynese, the guys from the south, what you all talking about? And they sounded funny to me. But the funny thing is, after like a couple of years on the ship, you listen to the different accents, little by little, you start to grasp part of theirs, and they probably grasp part of yours. So I'll never forget, when I came home, my mother says to me, oh, Joseph, you speak so nice now.
Were you aboard ship when they said it's over?
Yeah. We were aboard ship, everybody was so happy, and we're clapping, and it was screaming, oh boy, it's all over. Then we figured we're going to go back home. But they decided our fleet, only about 6 ships, had to go to China to, I think they called it showing the flag, just to show that we're there. And we stopped at different towns, Tsingtao, Chefoo, Weihai Wei. And every time we stopped there, we get a liberty, and we walk onto, and these people would, they just loved us, because they knew we were Americans. And one time we went to Tsingtao, they had a cathedral there, and they asked all the Catholics that wanted to go to Mass, we'll go to take you onto the beach and you go to the cathedral. So I'm going to the cathedral, we're sitting in there, and all these Chinese are all there. The priest starts in Latin, starts talking in Latin. I could have closed my eyes, I could have believed I was back in Brooklyn, in a church in Brooklyn. So we were told to go to the Marines barracks. We slept there that night, and in the morning, we had breakfast. We had like bacon and eggs, or you got an apple or an orange on the way out. And actually, you got your tray, and you still got some garbage on it. So outside the Marine barracks, there's a big barrel, and you dump what you have left and your tray into the barrel, just bits of food. And these kids would jump. They jump up and they dive into the barrel and take out the food and start eating it. And then we'd start walking around and they'd look at us like we had an apple or an orange. Yeah, you had to give it to them. So that always remembered what it could do when you're hungry, when you have those poor people, what they did for just their bits to eat. What the heck is that? That's the typhoon. After they sunk, we had to pick up the men from the water. We picked up about 10 of them, but they were so badly burned, they were like black. So they put them in sick bay, and that afternoon, and in the morning, they said, what happened? We asked the corpsmen in the sick bay, what happened? They're all dead. They died, the 10 of them. So now what they had to do, you're at sea, You can't hold them you got to bury them at sea. So what they do, they take the bodies, they put them in a big canvas. Now they put them on a ramp. The captain was up and he reads the Bible, and after he finished, he says, "I now commend these bodies to the deep." And when he said that, they stopped playing a bugle, and we all saluted, and as the bodies start shooting off the ship. And as they're hitting the water, I'm looking at the guys, and I'm saying, I had tears in my eye. All I'm thinking, one of those guys could have been me. And when my mother and father get that telegram. One day I'm going down by the engine room to relieve the guy on watch. His name was Gene DiCarlo. And all of a sudden I get down there, this is like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's got a handkerchief on his face. I says, "Gene, what's the matter?" "I don't know. I'm coughing up blood." "Blood?" "Yeah." "Because you better go to sick bay." So I went to sick bay. In the meantime, I had to finish the watch. As I got back to the watch, I found, where's Gene? We were in China then. We were in China. They said, "Where's Gene?" They sent him to the hospital in Tsingtao, it's a big city. And then we left the next day. I never saw any more about DiCarlo. Never heard any more about him. After the war is over, I'm home, and about 6 months later, I get a letter from Gene DiCarlo. He's in Halloran Hospital in Staten Island. He says, "Joe, I got your address. I want you to see me. I want you to come visit me. I mean, I've had tuberculosis, and I'm almost over it now." So Peg and I went to see him, and I talked to him, and he was doing, well. And then I didn't hear any more about him. So the funny part of that story, Brian, my grandson, got married to Tara, and I met Tara's mother and father, and they said they were school teachers in Passaic. Well, DiCarlo was from Passaic. So maybe they know the family. I said, "Did you ever know a DiCarlo? He lived on 215 Hammond Avenue in Passaic." She looked at me. She said, "He was my uncle." "Your uncle?" "Yeah, can you imagine that? The odds of my meeting him." So he died, and eventually from that. When I got back from the service, I went to visit my Aunt May, who lived in a house in Jersey City. And when I got there, I was talking to my Aunt May, and my Aunt May says, "Oh, Joseph, there's a girl who lives upstairs. Would be perfect for you. What's her name?" "Peggy." "Peggy?" "Yeah, but I'd like you to meet her." But then we started dating, and I wound up marrying the most wonderful girl of the whole world. We were in the Marion Gardens, and we were looking for a house because we had 2 children, I think, at that time. And I wanted to get a house. So I saw something in the paper about Verona. So I said to myself, well, let's go up to Verona and check it out. Went up to Verona, and we saw this house, nice Cape Cod. And I said, "Oh, this is nice." Bought the house, and all you kids are brought up in Verona. My oldest daughter was Janet. My son came next, he was Joseph. And then Mary and Eileen. 4 wonderful kids. Never gave us a bit of trouble. Well, I worked for the Newark Evening News, and I worked as a driver for the Newark Evening News for about 20 years. And the news went out of business. And I had to shape the Times, because we're all in the same union. All the drivers are in the same union. So I shaped the Times for about 3 months. I became a steady man. I worked the rest of my career in the New York Times. A great paper to work for. The conditions were good, the salary was good. It's a great paper.
Now there is only the gentle breeze. Where the surf and sand fight for command, waiting with me patiently for our glorious sunset.